Welcome to 52 Miniatures. My name's Alex. My son found this miniature. He was playing around with my paper bag of random hobby things. I'm sure you have one too, not the mini. A place where you keep just random stuff from the hobby. I'm not exactly sure where it came from. I think it might have accidentally been given to me, together with a squad of Games Workshop Necromunda rat skins. But I really like it, and I want to resurrect it out of the pile of random discarded hobby things and get it on the table. This lost to then be found mini is an almost 20-year-old pit slave model from the game Necromunda from Games Workshop. And when my son showed it to me, I just kind of fell in love a little. Obviously nostalgia, but also sincere appreciation of this older style of sculpting miniatures. What can I say? I like the style, especially this one in particular. Unfortunately missing an arm, but that's not too hard to remedy. How many minis do you think there are lying around in people's basements, attics and paper bags? Forgotten miniatures that will maybe never see a tabletop, never feel the caress of a paintbrush, never spark joy or frustration on a painter's face. I know I have several more. I hope I eventually get to them too. I had a bit of luck with the missing arm. Thought my stash of Cromlech orc bits would hold the perfect piece, but I underestimated the size difference. Instead, a resin miniature bought from Anvil Industries held the perfect arm. Anvil Industries, by the way, have great resin miniatures that are well worth checking out. Using one of my prefab sci-fi bases, I just needed to add a bit of fun rubble and things would look pretty cool. All my random sci-fi miniatures so far have similar style bases, the floor of an imagined spaceport bar. Warning, don't drink the glowy green drink, it's radioactive. But the orcs like it, tickles their brain, they say. A little bit of sculpting was needed to fuse the arm with the body, but I had optimistically just used brittle superglue on this metal mini, and while sculpting, the arm fell off. Doing what I should have done from the beginning, I now pinned the arm in place. Metal bits and pinning is a great idea. Then I went back to sculpting. I say that as if I know what I'm doing. I don't. I only sculpt things that resemble a pile of green stuff stabbed at by an amateur, like scarred skin tissue. I decided to paint this mini with intent, to make up for all the years of neglect. In the process, kind of disregarding standard practice YouTube tutorial aspects, so I'm using lots of different brands of paint together with slightly unexplainable paint techniques. Now this is obviously some sort of cyborg, maybe someone whose body is being repaired with mechanical parts because it was cheaper than the vat-grown limbs, or forced upgrades. Occasional monetary gain invested in mech upgrades increasing the chances of winning the next fight. This is a pit slave, after all. If I was a betting man, I'd bet on the one with the most robot-y parts. A scarred, bruised look to the skin. I can't see how attaching crude pieces of metal is not something that would cause a slight skin rash. Honestly, they do look kind of nailed in place. Blue jeans. Realism, perhaps. Something common, at least. This is no specialist fighter with high-end gear. Second-hand jeans from the black market stall behind the fighting pit, or hand-me-downs from someone in the owner's entourage. The cyborg arm I attached is kind of fancy looking. It looks high-grade. I'm thinking contraband. Again, black market goods. Something with a fancy orange finish. I mean, not only is orange a great sci-fi color, orange on mechanical parts like this, and immediately I start thinking about more realistically styled mechanical gear like factory floor robotics. In the end, I think this will be a slightly cyberpunk-looking color scheme, but you know, it's a pretty cyberpunk-looking mini. The skin is the major part on this model, and so I put effort in, mixing up a cool, pale skin tone and one a little more pinkish. I very much enjoy painting characteristic textured miniatures. And artist acrylic paints, you know the ones in tubes and not in bottles, thinned down, are great for me in that regard. I don't really know what it is that brings on these properties, the lack of flowy mediums perhaps. In the end, it just works well for me and the style that I enjoy. Layer after layer of thin layers of paint that blend together with great effect. Eventually, I also stained the skin using very thinned down paints. Some green in the shaded areas, thin enough to just slightly tint the skin tone, not turning things green. Same goes for scarlet and violet on the scarred tissue, on the lips, under the eyes, and some grey blue here and there. All exceptionally thinned down to only alter the character of the skin, not change its colour completely. And the eyes. I did the regular black first, then white, then a thin line for the pupil, but my result was scary. I am keeping it, though. If there's something I've learnt about eyes, that is, if I actually do paint them, and they don't look like a complete and utter disaster, then keep them. Redo and chances are it'll just get worse. Optimistic outlook, right? Orange is sometimes tricky. But I find that once there are some base layers or something resembling orange going and it's time to highlight, great results can be had by using pale, warm colors, all the way up to very pale, not quite white, yellow. Exaggerating the highlights, then painting on a very thin down layer of orange paint that stains those pale highlights back down to orange. Another thin layer of highlights can then be added for extra fancy looks. There's something about this model that just made it very fun to paint. I think I'm not only rescuing the Mini, but also my own hobby energy. I've had a bit of a meh feeling lately towards painting and color schemes. Too much of the same thing perhaps, or too much pretentious thought going into the process because of YouTube channel. Sometimes I can be on a roll, Minis get painted, they look great. And sometimes I run out of downhill acceleration, realizing there is now an uphill climb looming ahead. Color scheme dreams crumble and the wet palette dries out instantly. I'm sure you can feel the same. How you deal with it would be great to hear in the comments. But this little pit slave sure gave me joy back. And I'm a little proud because I think he turned out great. After I painted the base, I varnished the absolute living jeebus out of this Mini. Destined for the tabletop, I want to make sure my paint job is protected. On a metal Mini like this, that can require a little extra spice. What I usually do, and did, in this case, is start with a layer of polyurethane gloss varnish. A gloss varnish is usually more durable than a matte one, and a polyurethane varnish is usually more durable than a non-polyurethane varnish. After the gloss has cured properly, I then step down the shine with a matte polyurethane varnish, and once that is cured, I spray on a layer of ultra matte varnish for looks. This takes an immense amount of time in hours waited for varnish to dry. But fortunately, unlike regular paint, varnish dries even when we don't look at it. I hope you liked this video. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing. I didn't have much choice in the matter. We could say the Mini decided the content of this video, and maybe things should be more like that. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to join the Patreon. I know times are rough, but a few dollars go a long way when put together with everyone else's dollars. And before you know it, we'll all be bathing in dollars. No wait, I'll be bathing in dollars. But that's okay, I can film it and, make content. If you're not warming to that idea, please at least like and subscribe and tell your mom about me. Bye.